I don't remember exactly when I realized my family saw me as nothing more than a bank account. Maybe it was the first time I handed over my paycheck without a second thought, or the countless hours spent covering bills, buying groceries, and even paying for my brother's PlayStation. But it wasn't until the phone call that everything truly clicked. My mom was on the line, shouting, "Where's the money? The bills are due, and we're all depending on you." And in that moment, I didn't even feel anger. I just felt tired. I put the phone on speaker, leaned back against my kitchen counter, and calmly said, "Not my problem anymore." And that's when the screaming began. For as long as I could remember, I was the responsible one, the one who had to hold it all together. But that was the moment I stopped being their ATM. I'd been carrying them for years, always thinking, maybe next time things will change. But this was it, the line I wouldn't cross again. Let me rewind a little. I grew up in a small town, just outside of Chicago. Nothing extravagant, but enough for my parents to make sure we had food on the table. From the outside, we were a typical family, but inside, that's where the real story was hidden. There were two sets of rules, one for me and one for my brother Luke. Luke was the golden boy, everyone's favorite. If he got into trouble, it wasn't his fault. If he didn't make the grades, the teachers were to blame. Hell, when he crashed his first car, my parents bought him a new one without a second thought. But me? I was expected to be the perfect son. Anything less than an A meant I wasn't trying hard enough. If I needed anything, money for clothes, a car, even a few bucks for lunch, I had to earn it myself. By the time I was 16, I was working 2 part-time jobs. I didn't mind. It was just part of life, right? But looking back, I should have known that this was the start of something bigger. While I was hustling to pay for my future, Luke was living rent-free, playing video games in his room. I worked my ass off through college. No financial help from my parents. I took out loans, balanced jobs, and barely slept. Luke didn't even bother to graduate. He didn't get a job, didn't go to college, didn't care. And my parents, they just shrugged it off. "He's going through a rough patch," they'd say. "He'll figure it out." But me? They had high expectations. After I graduated, I moved back home to save up. I thought I'd be out in a year or two, but then my dad had a stroke. It wasn't fatal, but it left him unable to work. My mom asked me for help with the bills. I didn't hesitate. I loved my dad. I chipped in for the mortgage, utilities, and groceries, thinking it was temporary. But that temporary favor turned into a permanent job. Every month I was expected to pay more. First, it was half the mortgage. Then, it was all of it. Meanwhile, Luke, still living rent-free, wasn't expected to lift a finger. His girlfriend Amber got pregnant and they both moved in. No rent, no responsibility, no effort. My mom? She thought it was my job to pay for everything because I was the responsible one. Every time I tried to push back, I got hit with guilt trips. "Family helps family," she'd say. "You make enough money. You can afford it." I was drowning. Every paycheck went into that house. I had nothing left for myself. I couldn't save. I couldn't plan for the future. And then, when I finally snapped and told her I wouldn't pay for Luke and Amber's mess, my mom turned on me. "You're selfish. You're abandoning us. You're all we have left." That was the moment I knew I had to leave. I couldn't take it anymore. I found an apartment in the city. I signed the lease in secret, slowly moved my stuff out, and stopped depositing my paycheck into the account they had access to. For the first time in years, I felt a breath of freedom. The next few days were a whirlwind of calls, texts, and messages from my family, all demanding answers. "Where are you? The mortgage is overdue. Luke has a family to care for." I finally answered the phone, put it on speaker, and let my mom scream at me. When she finally took a breath, I said, "I moved out. Not my problem anymore." Her response? "You'll regret this." I laughed. What was she going to do? Drag me back into the mess she'd created? But she wasn't done. My phone started lighting up with messages. "You don't care that your dad is sick? Your brother had to sell his PlayStation. You're selfish. You left us in a bad spot." I blocked them all. I wasn't the one who put them there. The next shock came a week later. HR called. My mom had called my job, pretending to be me, asking about my paycheck. I was furious. When I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. "We need the money." "You weren't giving us anything," she said nonchalantly. And then came the bombshell. "I had to open a credit card in your name to get us through." My own mother. She'd stolen my identity and maxed out a $15,000 credit card in my name. And she acted like it was my fault. I couldn't breathe. I called the credit card company, filed a police report, and soon the legal system started working. My family? They were in complete denial. "You're turning your back on your family," they'd say. But the truth was, I wasn't turning my back on them. I was freeing myself from being their emotional and financial hostage. A few days later, I came home to find my apartment trashed. The door was forced open, my laptop was gone, and there was a note taped to my fridge. "You did this to yourself. Come back and do the right thing." I knew who it was. Luke. I immediately called the cops. The next morning, I got security footage of Luke and Amber breaking into my apartment. They weren't just leeching off me, they were criminals. I handed the footage to the police. Luke was arrested for breaking and entering, and Amber, his accomplice, was charged too. My mom, of course, lost it, but I didn't back down. That night, I saw my mom's post on Facebook. She cried about betrayal, about how I was tearing the family apart. But I had nothing to apologize for. I left one simple comment. Breaking into someone's home isn't needing help. It's a crime. A few days later, Luke was in jail for 2 years. Amber got probation, and my mother was hit with fraud charges. The house was foreclosed. My parents had nothing left. Me? I was free. I finally paid off my debts and started living for myself. A few months later, I got a text from an unknown number. It said, "I forgive you. We can move past this if you apologize." It was from my mom. I stared at the screen for a while before I deleted it. She didn't need my forgiveness. I needed hers, but I wasn't going to give it to her. Sometimes, the hardest thing you'll ever have to do is let go of the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally. But sometimes, it's the only way to protect yourself. Family can be a source of joy and love, but they can also be a source of deep emotional harm if they only see you as a tool for their convenience. Don't let yourself be trapped. You have the right to live for yourself. Have you ever had to take a stand for yourself, even when it meant standing up to family? Tell us your story in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you believe no one should feel like they have to sacrifice their happiness for others.